Hello, I want to quickly talk about the communication styles, especially in the Nigerian community. This doesn't mean that, it's mostly how we were raised. So there are like four different types of communication styles: passive, passive aggressive, aggressive, and assertive. But then in the workplace, I think it's different. In the workplace, there's passive, there's aggressive, and there's submissive, and then there's manipulative, and then there's of course assertive. The thing is, passive is like people who always say yes. You're just passive. It's a style. When someone says what you don't like, you just let it go, slide. You're passive because you don't want confrontation. And then passive aggressive is a bit different. Okay, aggressive is you're bold, you're loud, and then you kind of the things you say are not they're targeted at being condescending to people. You blame, intimidate, criticize, or threaten. So many ways. And then now that we understand that there are things called aggressive statements like microaggression. Like at workplace one time, this Hispanic guy had this fight with this African American dude, and it was just a brawl, and they were talking, and then the Hispanic guy, because the camera was recording, so he couldn't show he was backing the camera, but he couldn't show that he was actually responding. So it could only show the African American guy really, coming up. But the moment this Hispanic guy stood up and walked into the African American space, that was when they both got suspended because he was inciting aggression. So his stance was microaggressive. So there's body language, there's verbal, there's non-verbal, there are different types of communication. But the passive aggressive is worse because you don't say anything, and then you start to jeopardize. You can say, oh yes, I'm going to do it, but then you start to jeopardize whatever the person is doing. Or it's a mixture of your passive, and then you do silent treatment, which is very common in Nigeria. Silent treatment, you say good morning, good morning yourself. So things like that are not healthy. But the assertive, there are different styles. The assertive style of communication is the best because you're kind. Yeah. It's a struggle between assertive, passive aggressive, submissive, manipulative. Like it's a struggle because it's hard naturally to have a conversation with somebody who is aggressive or passive aggressive because it will just incite you. Not everybody is skilled to ignore passive aggressive stances or aggressive stances. Something like you make a comment. Like, okay, let me give an example. There was a time I made a post. It was supposed to be a joke, and I now said witchcraft. So it ticked off one of my friends, and we got back and forth, on the chat. And then I was wondering where it was coming from because I was like, why is she talking about me like this? And all of a sudden, she said, "Is that why you use the word witchcraft?" I was like, "Oh crap, that's it." So I apologized and changed the word because, in as much as I was joking, it's fun to you when it doesn't affect you. So when we say something is funny, it's actually affecting somebody else, but ourselves. So the moment she told me, I said, "Oh crap, I apologize." I went and changed the word to instead of witchcraft, I used like something else because that word was microaggressive. It was triggering for her. So they're not defined. They're not cast in stone. People might have things they're dealing with in the past. So communication is when you tell somebody what you want, or when you tell somebody something, until the person has understood exactly what you're trying to say, you've not communicated. So if you're trying to talk to a 5-year-old and then you've said something and the 5-year-old does not understand you, you've not communicated at all. So until someone is able to understand what you're saying, there has been no communication. Having said that, sometimes we are very defensive when we make our points, and then I'll refer to last year during George Floyd. Everybody was mad and angry. And I made a post and I used the word retard. And a friend of mine who I just met online, reached out to me publicly first and said, "Hey, don't use that word." But rather than listen to her, I became defensive. I said, "Oh, but retard means this." She says, "No, this is not right. That this is what it means to people who have kids with disabilities or special needs." But then I was still learning, so I was like, "Nah." So she got a screenshot, posted the definition of retard from that angle, and I went and got my own screenshots to post. So the problem there was, it's not about being the better person. Problem there was, she was communicating her pain to me, but I was trying to prove that I was right. So it's not about being right. Communication should not be about being right. It should be about being kind to people. And we're all learning every day. Me, I'm learning. It's hard, especially when you're coming from a place like Nigeria where everybody, they shout like, "They mad, they Christian, Papa, they mad." It's really hard because sometimes instead of being that loud, you become passive, or you become passive aggressive, which is worse. You now start, "Oh, I go do them," and then you not do it. But we should strive to be the best versions of ourselves that we could be. It's not easy. Anyway, back to the lady of last year. Before I could know it, she had blocked me. I looked for her, searched for her. And being someone who's self-aware, I did not say, bye. I knew I had done something wrong. I was not at peace. Searched for her for like a whole year. Till about 2 months ago, I just saw her name on Instagram. Then I reached out to her, straight to the point, apologized. And she said, "Oh, thank you for reaching out to me. This means a lot to me." One of the things I said was, I was not this, I had not gotten to this point mentally last year. And I asked for forgiveness because it looked like you were expecting me to know better, but I didn't. We all make mistakes. We are not perfect people. And I can tell you, most times we resort to aggressive style of communication. We become condescending, and we what's the other thing we do? What's that thing? Condescending. So we become condescending, and then we like blame people, intimidate them. Like some people, some of my classmates yesterday did something really weird. They went below the belt. Where you're making a comment, an argument, and you go, "Oh, no, I understand. Maybe it's because you're maybe it's because you're in your period." Like, that's microaggressive, and it doesn't even make sense. You're talking about something, a subject, then you switch to attack the person. Maybe it's because you're a woman, you're in your home, you're having your hormonal imbalance. No, talk about the issue. Or maybe you're probably grieving because your mom is dead. That's so low, like it's. But having also gotten to a point in my life where I understand that people do things not because they're wicked, but because that's all they know at the time. It's hard, yeah, to let go because you're human. But eventually I'm like, this is the best they know. So nothing I can do. The best I can do is either stop communicating with them or just be patient with them if I have that patience, or just cut them off or tell them, which I've done. Because I always still say what Jesus said we should do. If someone offends you, tell him his fault. He didn't say meander. Just tell him his fault. The fault. Don't insult the person. Don't say, "You're always doing this. Yeah, you're a cheat. Yeah, you're always shouting." No. Tell him his fault. When he doesn't listen, go with 2 other people. If he doesn't listen, report to the authorities. I think that's just a very simple way of living with people that will help us. It's hard. It's hard. It's not about being the bigger person. It's about being the better version of yourself. So let's learn to communicate the issue. Talk about the issue. And one more thing people do is people kind of bring in their bias to conversations. If like I'm going to refer back to that last year. I said something, and then she drew my attention to the fact that it was offending her. So the best thing to do in that situation is not to try to prove that you're right, is to try to listen to the person who is hurting. Like, oh, Nigerians are mad. Why would you say that? It's not even the right thing to say. Instead of saying, yes, now Nigerians are mad. Okay, so why do you think it's not the right thing to say? And then the person explains to you the point of view, and you might eventually see why you shouldn't say it that way. It's hard, I know, especially coming from the kind of community where we were raised, where it looks like everybody's trying to prove that they're right or smarter or intelligent or something. But we have to just have to find a way to learn to communicate in a way that's healthy, because other styles of communication are unhealthy. Passive is worse because you don't even know what the person has in mind. Passive aggressive is terrible. So it's terrible as aggressive. And sometimes even my posts sometimes I know are very boom aggressive, because it's not about shouting. It's about the way the words are coined that can incite people to get angry. So I'm also talking to myself. We learn daily, and I hope to God that eventually we'll get to that point in our lives where we can communicate with each other without being disrespectful or being microaggressive. That's just what I wanted to talk about. I want to talk about my experiences as well, and how it affects me as well, and how I hope to be. I hope to be really patient with people. Damn, it's hard. Sometimes it's hard, especially when they're just throwing jabs at you. It's hard, right? Maybe in that case, you now do what Christ said. If your eye causes you to sin, just cut it off. Maybe what you should do is ignore, play passive, maybe be passive, or just block or something. Because your mental health is also important. If you keep engaging things like that, it begins to affect your psyche at the end of the day. And because microaggression is a form of abuse, before you know it, you either inherit, like absorb that energy and start doing the same thing while you're trying to defend yourself. And once you get into a stance where you're defending yourself, the conversation is not going to go well. Once you find yourself defending yourself, that conversation is never going to go well. It's better for you to just deal with the issue. If you can't deal with the issue at the time, you can excuse yourself. Fortunately, if it's your post, you can't excuse yourself. Yeah, maybe you can. I don't know. Ignore. So, yeah, the assertive style of communication is the best. It's called style of communication. It doesn't mean that's who you are. It means that you can find yourself slipping to aggressive, assertive, passive aggressive. But we're striving. The ideal goal is to strive to be more assertive every single time. You're not going to get it right every time, but at least you're going to try. So thanks, guys. I didn't mean to stay long, but I just hope we kind of picked one or two things from this, and I hope we can change unhealthy patterns and start to why am I even blabbing? I'm sleepy. And start to do things right. And one of the ways to change unhealthy patterns is by starting the right pattern. How do I know? Apart from the analogy of the glass cup with oil, and then let's say palm oil, and then you want to fill it with vegetable oil, you have to keep pouring the vegetable oil. Apart from that analogy, I think John the Baptist explained it when he said that you may increase, that I may decrease. So he didn't say, let me decrease before I increase. He says, increase, and then it's going to decrease me. So instead of trying to fight the bad habits or patterns, introduce new patterns to your life that will help. Like my own is, now if I realize, I apologize straight up. I'm not going to argue. Oh, this is wrong. Oh, I'm sorry I used the word idiotic. I'm sorry I used the word witchcraft. I will apologize, because it's not about being right. It's about being kind to people. It's hard, but it's possible. So find a pattern that's going to help you curb the bad part. Mine is going to be apologize. by the time I do it a lot of times and I'm tired of doing it, I'll find a way to now, or maybe find a way to reframe my words, especially when it's a particular community and I know that they're going to be offended, and I don't just use those words. I have to be very conscious and self-aware. All right, thanks guys. I gotta go to sleep. Peace out.